Welcome to the Kingdom Alliance podcast, where we share stories that matter. At Kingdom Alliance, we are on a mission to ignite a movement of impact and freedom through mentorship and the development of leaders across the globe. You're invited to listen in as we share stories from men and women around the world who are having a massive impact on the kingdom. Here at Kingdom Alliance, we believe that when you change yourself, you change the world. Well, my goodness. Welcome back to the Kingdom Alliance podcast. I'm so thrilled to have this amazing woman, Sundstrom, on here today. Let me give you a little bio before we get into our talk. She's the author of 5 books. She is a book coach, a speaker, an award-winning entrepreneur. She is the founder of the Right Now Method, WRITE, which could be both. Right now. You could say right now. And the 5-day Right Now Challenge, WRITE, and an online training event which has been attended by thousands of aspiring writers. She's also the creator of a writing group coaching program, which is helping hundreds all over the world. I know many of them who to learn how to write and publish their books. And she is the owner of Book Breakthrough Publishing, which provides a done-for-you publishing service for entrepreneurs. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. So good to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. And I actually met Sue. Where are you joining the podcast from right now?
I am Surrey, United Kingdom. So I am in rainy England.
And I am in sunny California, which is where I met Sue. And you were on the heels of an event that you hosted pretty close to me, one of your writing retreats.
I was actually my first offline event. I mainly do online events. Decided it was about time to do something offline. So yes, I did my first retreat.
That was your first one?
It was my first one. Yes, I loved it.
And it was amazing.
It was awesome. I absolutely loved it. We combined prophetic ministry with writing techniques, writing sessions, consulting with people on their books. It was wonderful and just a real amazing time of connecting. We had dinner, we had fun, and we had tears, we had laughs. Everything I love and am constantly about. So
I love it. Can we go backwards before we go forward? Have you always been a writer? Did you do something before you're doing what you do now? And like, if you're anything like me, I knew I was going to author books when I was a very, very young girl in grade school. Were you always like that?
I was, but I had a long and winding road to get there because probably similar story to a lot of the wonderful aspiring authors that I meet who have got something in their heart. They've probably got multiple books in them. They've got so much wisdom and knowledge and things they've learned, but they've got that nagging self-doubt. But before I got that, you know how, when you are young, you haven't yet been indoctrinated that there's certain things you can't do. And so that was me at age 14. And I actually wrote my first book age 14. So when I was super young, I always just loved reading. I mean, I just devoured books and I would read them above my age and I would read these ridiculous classics. And it was fun for me. It was a chore for everyone else, but it was fun for me. And, you kind of just grow up knowing that you're a little bit weird. And I've come to realize that weird is good. Weird is really good. That's what us entrepreneurs are. And so when I was 14, actually, I was with a friend of mine, Kathy, at the back of biology class, the kind of class where they teach you how to clean bones and do other, not so scintillating stuff that, you're probably not going to use again in your life. And so we're back at the class really bored. And so we say to each other, or whisper to each other, why don't we write a story? And so we start, scribbling on our desk, so that the teacher doesn't notice. And we start actually writing a story, like a princess story. Well, my friend Kathy tired of it pretty quickly, but I got home and I actually wrote out the whole thing.
Wow.
And so it had about 5 chapters. There was a princess and a castle, and there was a boy, and there was a sword, and it was kind of female empowerment way of thinking, but children's fiction. And I wrote this entire thing, as I say, before that dream had been squashed, before I knew I couldn't do it. I just didn't know any better, so I just did it. And unfortunately, I didn't know where to go from there, though. And I wasn't the type of person who really shared a lot with my parents. I didn't receive guidance of, how to improve it, how to get it published, and what to do with it. So it actually just sat for years and years and years and years. It moved from house to house with me. I eventually lost it until, I know, fast forward, 2016, I finally get a coach, get inspired by an event, start writing, finally publish the first book. Many years in between, just doing other careers, other things, having life, marriage, children, everything else getting in the way. And so after that, after finally publishing, good news, after starting a business and helping many other people, I found a portion of that original story. I literally have the yellowed piece of paper. And I am in the process of, getting illustrations sorted out for it, and actually am going to publish it.
That's amazing. How many pages of the original thing do you have? Did you find?
I found 2 typewritten pages. So I'm just going to show you actually like one of them, because you won't believe. I know if you're listening by audio, you might be able to see this, but this is this yellowed.
That is so cool.
I've got to frame it and put it on a wall, actually.
You need to. So when you read that, what you wrote when you were 14, what do you think of your writing skills?
Well, I had a lot of imagination.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I mean, we do. And I really need to get back to that kind of imagination. I mean, I had names like Sir Rojnoffin's Friedelnampf and, Rhonda and Vronda and, all these made up names, and the populist trees. And I had a setting, like Lord of the Rings. I think it's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I had my setting that I'd created, and so I'm very excited to finally publish it. But it did, the fact that it took so long to actually finally fulfill the dream that is me, is so inherent about me. I love writing, I love reading. It put in me such a passion to help other people, and it made me realize that so many others had the same things holding them back from writing. And it didn't mean they couldn't do it. It didn't mean they shouldn't be doing it. In fact, so often it means you should be doing it, but so many people just think, my writing is not good enough. Who am I to write a book? My topic's been covered already. No one's going to read it, all this nonsense. And so I love helping people with the mindset side of things, and then also the writing side of things, because the mindset is probably like 80-90% of getting the thing done.
Maybe even more. And you said a couple things there that I hear over and over. Nobody's going to be interested in my story. I'm not a writer. And there's already so many other stories out there that are even better than mine, or harder, or bigger stories. And that is, I find that thought process is very prevalent in most areas of many people's lives, and especially for believers, because I think that the enemy knows that when you tell your story, that it is a key that unlocks something for other people, and he does not want your story told.
Absolutely. And, there are no boring stories. There are only stories told in a boring way.
Right. That's so beautiful.
Do you know, the most ordinary moment can touch people's lives so deeply.
Yeah.
So people believe the lie that their story is not interesting, but you actually don't relate to a story that only, 1 in 10 million people experience. You relate to the mother who's tired and who's exhausted because she hasn't had a break from looking after her baby. You relate to that story. You relate to the stories of divorce. You relate to the stories of trying to connect with God. And so there's literally no boring story at all.
That's amazing. And, so which came first? You helping other people or you writing your own book?
Me writing my own book came first. Before that, I did do some life coaching. So I am a qualified life coach as well. What I love about that is that once I started really narrowing in on helping people with books, I was able to take my coaching knowledge and my understanding of how people hold themselves back with their limiting beliefs and how to unlock some of that. I was able to bring that into the coaching. So the desire to help people was always there. The desire to write was always there. The book, my own book, came first, and then it gave me also that finishing. I believe there's a finishing anointing. I believe you have a finishing anointing, and if you haven't done it, you can't pass it on. And so it gave me that finishing anointing because prior to that, I would stop, start, so many things. There's nothing like finishing a book. And I tell this to so many of my authors, there's nothing like finishing a book to make a finisher out of you.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it only takes the confidence that you did it once to apply it to every area of your life.
Yeah. And so many goals. So you can just knock out so many goals after you've written a book. So it's a great way to get that quitting habit out of you.
Yes. Yes. So I'm sure that as you meet people in the world and you tell them what you do, I would venture that 2 out of every 3 tell you, oh, I want to write a book.
Totally. It's actually 81% in the US.
Yeah.
Which is probably worldwide.
Yeah.
So 81% in the US actually want to write a book, and only 1% do that.
Yeah. Isn't that
on
crazy?
A mission. Yeah. I'm on a mission to change this stat. But yeah, it's crazy. I think it's because everyone knows they have a story in them. Everyone knows they have a message, something to say.
Yeah. I think that's part of, God, that's part of what our lives are supposed to be, a testimony to God's goodness, its faithfulness, and the power to overcome because of our relationship with him, and, resilience, getting knocked down and coming back up. And I said that to you because when I started a podcast before I wrote a book, and when I started a podcast and I would say, oh, I have a podcast, but literally every person I met was like, oh, I want to start a podcast. Then I offered, not that I was an expert or anything at that point, I had just done it. And I did it for free because I taught myself via like YouTube University. And so I told people, I'll teach you what I know, and only one person out of the hundreds, literally hundreds, told me they wanted to start a podcast. I probably didn't offer it to hundreds of people, but I offered it to a lot of people. I'm happy to teach you what I know. One person took advantage of that. And I would venture to guess it's the same with writing a book.
Absolutely. It's the same with everything, isn't it? There's a big difference between having an idea and actually taking action and implementing it. And that's why people like us are needed. Leaders are needed to nudge people in the right direction, the direction that they want to go, but haven't got there yet. Yeah.
That's how I feel about mentoring and leading people, is that I'm taking them where they told me they want to go. I'm not taking them where I want them to go. I'm taking them where they told me they want to go. And that accountability piece really, it's a key. It really is a key to it. So I would imagine, and tell me if this is true, but I would imagine that as you are walking people through the process of coaching them to getting their book from idea to outline to manuscript to printed, there's probably a radical transformation in their own lives, because writing can be very cathartic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Especially those who are writing a memoir, they're writing their testimony. For them, it can be very cathartic. And actually, there is science behind the fact that writing is healing. We all know that, I think, inherently, because of those of us who journal.
Yeah.
We just know there's something about it. It brings clarity. It brings clarity to how you feel. It brings awareness of where you're at. It releases emotions. For some, it can be quite hard because they start to relive some of the trauma that they've been through. But that is just an indicator that they need more healing. And so it's actually a good thing that it's bringing things up. And for those who not even writing about trauma, it's such a confidence booster. And again, it clarifies how you communicate. It helps you really understand your message, your beliefs, what you stand for, what you're passionate about when you start writing. So people get so much more confident. A lot of people go on to speak when they didn't initially. They get into media, they get other opportunities, they get other doors opened. It's really a door opener for people. So it's wonderful.
It surely can be a door opener where maybe somebody, you'd be like, I'd love to speak at your event. And be like, okay, well, I'd love to send you a copy of my book first so you can hear my story. That immediately gives you a new level of credibility with people. Especially, so being published through your publishing company, are people submitting, or are they your clients? Are you publishing your clients only, or will you take somebody off the street?
I would take someone off the street. They are my clients, though. I mean, I'm not a traditional publisher. I'm a hybrid publisher. Yeah. So they are my clients, and they are paying me for the service that I provide to give them a shortcut, to accelerate it, to make sure that it's a quality product. What I don't do or won't do is, if I do get a book that someone wants to pay me to do, and I really don't think that it's going to be a good product, no matter how much I try and change it, then I won't do it. But what I'll endeavor to do, and I have had books that are great stories, not very well written, but what I have done is a whole lot of editing, and then we have produced something that's a whole lot better than what it would have been on its own. So as authors, they don't need to be brilliant writers if they want to do their first draft and hand it over and have someone actually just enhance the writing and make it better. Obviously, it's a plus if you write well. It's only going to help you in all of your communication if you write well, but it's not a necessity. So when people say that's their stumbling block, it really is not. It doesn't need to be a stumbling block.
I just want to affirm that if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I'd love to write a book, but I'm a terrible writer. I will tell you that if you can have a good partner like Sue, you can take it, because the right questions asked by an expert can help you to flesh out and give life to, I don't want to say dead words, because they're not dead, but they could be flat, and a good partner editor can bring beautiful vibrancy and emotion to something that is really in you, but you didn't know how to express it. And the right questions can pull it out. So you could go from, being a ho-hum writer to being an absolutely phenomenal published author with Sue.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And there's a lot that I do naturally that I didn't realize I did naturally. I think because I've just always loved writing and I've written for such a long time. So some of it, obviously I've since taken more classes, read more books on it, but some of it I had to analyze. Why did I do that? How did I do that? And, how can I now teach that to someone else? It was quite an interesting discovery for me. that, but I guess, we're all like that. Whatever we are naturally good at, we don't, we kind of have to realize that not everyone finds it easy, and we just find it easy because we are naturally good at it.
It's really funny because I wrote 2 books, and the first one I wrote in 13 days. So I wrote a chapter a day for 13 days, 13 chapters. And I don't know anything about anything, and I didn't even know what it was going to be. God brought a publisher into my path. We did a hybrid model. And then I wrote another one 2 months later, and that one took me 3 weeks. So I didn't do quite a chapter a day because of I was busy, but I did almost a chapter a day for the second one. And so I don't know, a year later or something, maybe it was 2 years later after they were published, I met a woman who was a writing coach, and she said, "So what was your process?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't have a process." And she goes, "Well, what do you mean?" She dug into the question. I did have a process. I didn't know it because I wasn't trying to like be an author kind of a thing. I was just pouring out, and I did have a process. And I realized, oh, I had a full blown process. I would get up in the morning. I would go to the gym, and I go pretty early. I would sit down on the couch. I only wrote in the morning, and I would start, and I wouldn't finish until the chapter was done. And that was and I did it every day.
That's so good. So many people have to be taught how to do that. That's not natural to so many people, but that is awesome. You also, by not having a process or a distinct writing process, you could be what's called a pantser. So I don't know if you've heard of this before, but you can either be a pantser or a planner. There are 2 types of writers. So most of us should really do the planning, so an outline first. And that's where so many people get stuck until they get an outline. So one of the first things I show people how to do is do an outline, and then they light bulbs go off and they can't believe it, and they can't believe how much easier it then becomes. But anyway, there's pantsers. So there's about 10 to 15% of us who are pantsers, and those are the people who feel like their creativity is stifled if they do an outline. So they literally have to just write whatever's in their head and then just see how it turns out.
Well, I think I had a tentative table of contents, but it changed. Like I wrote something down, but it changed and it added and take away. And here's something that's really interesting, or maybe not to you because maybe you've seen it because this is what you do, but it was interesting to me. So when I wrote the first chapter, I thought it was the first chapter, but every subsequent chapter that I wrote went ahead of it. So I almost wrote it in reverse, but unknowingly, because like I said, I'm certainly not trained. I didn't have anybody talk to me about process, but every time I would write something, I would think that it was the beginning, but then I would find something else that actually naturally came before it. So I almost wrote the whole thing in reverse, starting with the last chapter.
That is unusual. But what I love about it is that you didn't let that stop you. And that's why you wrote it in 13 days. And that's why you wrote the second book so quickly, is because you didn't overthink it. You just kept on going. So even when you discovered that the second chapter should have been before the first, you didn't let that stop you from keeping going. That's awesome. So you're clearly, obviously, I know this already about you, but you're clearly a huge action taker and not an overthinker. And that's why you got it done, because the first draft is supposed to be crummy, and
it probably is crummy. If I read it now, what I know now, I'd probably be like cringe over what I wrote, to be honest with you.
But so many people think that first attempt should be amazing. I don't mean your first published book. I mean literally the first draft, so the first pass at the writing. So many people think that should be great, and then when it's not, when they've only done one chapter and it's not great, they want to give up.
Yeah,
because they don't realize it's normal. It's normal to have that first pass to be crummy. You're supposed to then go back and edit. You're not supposed to edit while writing. You're supposed to write the whole thing and then edit. So
yeah,
Sounds like you did that. You just wrote and wrote and wrote.
I wrote it. Well, I like to say that I actually had what I call the Holy Spirit flow. So I didn't have to try. It was pouring out of me like you turned on a faucet. And both books were like that. And then about a year and a half after those were published, I began to write my third book. And I got about a chapter and a half in, and there was no flow. Like I was really having to force it. So I just decided that it wasn't time for it. It wasn't the time to write those. So I have so many books in me, Sue. I have like 5 or 6 books that I want to, if I ever get the time that I want to write. But another thing I think that happens for people when they're doing anything, whether it's a podcast or a book or anything, is their story to them seems so ho hum, but your story to somebody else isn't. So my husband, he grew up amazing man. He's my business partner. He's my best friend. He's everything. And he grew up in an amazing family, very healthy. I mean, everybody has some sort of dysfunction, but I always say he grew up with Warren and Jude Cleaver. I don't know if you had like Leave It to Beaver over there, if you grew up with that, but it was like literally the most quintessentially sweet, innocent, perfect household. His parents didn't fight in front of him. Nobody cursed, nobody drank. They went to church. Like he had literally like they lived on property and they had animals and like, you know, they lived in the country and went to Christian school. It's like, how idyllic. I mean, how idyllic is your growing up? And so because and he had great people around him, but because of the way that he grew up, he looks at things that seem extraordinarily normal and like ho hum to him, but they are life altering to people that didn't grow up in that environment. So he'll always go, I'll look at him, I'll be like, wow, that's like really insightful, or that's really good. And he'll go, no, it's common sense. I go, common sense for you is not common sense for somebody else because they did not have your experience. So I think that happens a lot when people want to attempt to write a book. They think, oh, everybody, this is not good, not news to anybody. And that is just not true.
No, not at all. And whatever you're interested about and passionate about, you probably know more than 80% of other people about that topic.
Yeah.
And there are so many who are hungry to learn from you. The other thing is you don't need to be the best at anything. You don't need to be the number one expert at anything to be able to teach so many people. And just look behind you and just see who are the people behind you who can learn from what you have. Plus your story is so unique and no one can ever write it the way you write it.
Right.
I describe it like this. So, because again, so many authors, or aspiring authors have this mental block of my story isn't unique enough. It's already been told. And, no one's going to want to hear it. Or I don't know enough, I'm not expert enough. And I asked them, well, tell me, those of you ladies, especially, have you ever sat with a friend with a cup of coffee in hand, both of you in a coffee shop, and she's really struggling with something and it's something that you know a little bit about, and you were able to give her advice and you really helped her, and she walked away feeling very comforted, very encouraged, and with some extra wisdom. And of course, every single hand goes up. And we all have that. We all have something that we do know that a friend across from us does not know as much. For all of us, it's something different, perhaps. And then I ask them to imagine that obviously we all know we have 7 billion people on the planet. So if you imagine that friend who's sitting across from you, and now picture anyone else out of the 7 billion people on the planet, which is thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, who represent that person.
Yeah.
They are similar. They have similar problems, similar struggles. And now see that sea of people that you are across from while you're having your cup of coffee. Now, those are the people who are waiting for you to write your book.
That is so good. I hope that encourages you if you're listening to this. Sue, what do you have coming up that people can be a part of? Any retreats, anything that people can hop into?
I have a free copy of my book on writing, actually, which I think would be a great thing for people to grab hold of. It's called Write It Now, Woman of God. And I'm going to be running ads to it soon, so it will no longer be free. But at the moment, you can get it for free. Anyone who's listening here. And
We'll put
it's
the link
at,
to that. If you'll give us the link, we'll put the link to that in
yeah,
the show notes.
sure. The rightnowbook.com, but I suppose you'll put it in the links afterwards. But yeah, if they just go to the rightnowbook.com, they can get a free digital copy of it. On me, it's on sale Amazon, so you don't have to buy it there. You can get it from me, and that will tell you in more detail some of the things that I've just been able to scratch the surface on today about mindset and how to really get yourself in the right frame of mind before you write your book, how to get some of those horrible lies. I call them excuses, actually, because they are excuses. And when we call them excuses, we disempower them. So all those excuses, this book will show you how to get all those excuses out of your head, and then it'll show you how to create an outline, and then it'll show you how to carry on writing after the outline. So it's not going to get you to publishing your book. It's not going to get you to editing your book, but it's going to get you a whole lot of momentum and help to actually write your book.
Yeah, because there are phases of being ready in the process. So yeah, that's amazing. We will make sure to put in the show notes to any social media or whatever, however people can contact you and get in touch with you. I will tell you that reaching out to Sue, you will not be disappointed. She's not just very, very skilled. She's just an incredibly lovely, caring woman that's actually going to care about what she's doing with you and your project and your story. And that's a beautiful thing in this world. And I just want to say to you, Sue, thank you for what you're doing and giving legs and life to so many people's stories that need to be told, and doing it with excellence and with a smile on your face and with passion. It just is truly, truly inspiring to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you're doing. You are doing amazing. And I love seeing you on my social media feed. I love seeing the inspiring things you're doing. I love seeing how you're empowering women and now men as well. So keep going. You guys are just amazing. You're doing so much good work.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you. And I'm so happy to have had you as a guest. Please come back again. If you have something else to launch or announce, come back. We'll tell everybody on the podcast. And next time you're across the pond, we'll have to sit and have breakfast again.
I would love that. Thank you so much for having me. Love talking to you. Mwah.
Mwah, mwah. Thank you so much, Sue.
Bye.